Ladies and gentlemen, former Saints wide receiver and free agent wide receiver Michael Thomas took shots at the Saints medical staff and head coach Dennis Allen for how their operation works. There is no doubt that there is bad blood between Michael Thomas and the Saints organization, mainly the front office, the head coach, the quarterback, and the medical staff. Thomas has ended up on injured reserve over the last 4 seasons, which is unfortunate considering how good of a player he can be when he's playing. But with Michael Thomas on his way out of New Orleans and looking for a new team around the NFL, he's making it known the issues and the problems going on in the Saints organization. He's letting the fans know what's going on, the issues and the truth about what's going on with that Saints culture in that building, from the front office to the coaching staff and now to the medical team and how they handle their business. When it comes to the medical staff and Michael Thomas, there is definitely some tension, and I don't blame him. In 2020, Michael Thomas was diagnosed with a high ankle sprain after being left in to block on a meaningless run play at the end of the game under 2 minutes because Sean Payton wanted to run up the score in a Week 1 game. As it turns out, this was a misdiagnosis and Michael Thomas actually had a torn deltoid and other ligaments were torn in his ankle, which forced him to be on and off the field during the 2020 season, and had it actually been a high ankle sprain, he would have been healed by Week 10, which is the first time he returned. During the season, Michael Thomas was told he would not need surgery from the medical team during the season, but once the season ended, they told him to get surgery, which was a bullshit approach. And even through all this pain, Michael Thomas still played through this injury for Drew Brees' last season. And he still looked like a really good player despite basically playing on a broken ankle. Thomas would try getting a second opinion, rehabbing without surgery, but this backfired, which forced a late surgery going into 2021, which actually forced him to miss that season. On top of that, it was a botched surgery and his body rejecting the hardware, which at times can lead to infection. The crazy part about his body rejecting the hardware is that this only happens to about 1% of people. Then in the 2022 season, Michael Thomas would get turf toe and a dislocated toe, something that doesn't sound very serious, but guess what? Deion Sanders almost had to amputate his foot because of these injuries, so yeah, they're pretty serious. But after Thomas had been injured in that Week 3 game, Dennis Allen would continue to say that he was progressing, he was rehabbing very well, and he'll be back soon. It wasn't expected to be a long-term thing, and Michael Thomas didn't go on injured reserve for quite some time. But then Michael Thomas would be placed on injured reserve, which kept him out the rest of the season. So there's either miscommunication from Dennis Allen and the medical staff, or there was a misdiagnosis and they thought it was something and then turns out it was a completely different thing. Either way, a very bad look for Dennis Allen and the medical team. Or it could have maybe been both, which led to the confusion about the situation regarding Michael Thomas and his toe injury. And if you can't diagnose the right injury, how are you supposed to be able to treat it and rehab it in the right way? And for the medical staff, how are you able to create a medical treatment or a rehab process if you don't have the right diagnosis? Then this past season in 2023, Michael Thomas was injured due to a bad ball from Derek Carr, which forced Thomas to miss the rest of the regular season due to a sprained MCL. Michael Thomas had been the healthiest he had been in years, playing and starting in 10 games. And he was still producing despite a bad offensive coordinator and a bad quarterback play, and Thomas was actually on pace to get about 1,000 yards until Derek Carr threw him a bad ball. And let's not forget that in 2022, Michael Thomas looked like the same receiver he was in 2020 with a basically broken ankle. He was still a very good player. The issue is nowhere near the talent, it's just the availability, but even then, some of that isn't even his fault. But as of recently, Michael Thomas isn't the only player who has been dealing with injuries, as right tackle Ryan Ramczyk has been dealing with a degenerative knee injury, meaning nothing will ever heal it, no surgery, no procedure will ever help it become fully healthy again. There's essentially no ligaments or tendons in his knee, so it is just straight on bone action, which just sounds so painful. And now Ryan Ramczyk may not even be available to play this year because of this injury, and this could possibly force Ryan Ramczyk to retire early, which is unfortunate because just like Michael Thomas, they are both on Hall of Fame trajectory and on Hall of Fame pace before they started having injuries. And as of Tuesday, head coach Dennis Allen said that he does not feel very optimistic about Ryan Ramczyk's knee compared to a few weeks ago when they felt a lot better about it, which was initially when he had the surgery.
Yeah, I think it still remains to be seen. You know what I mean? At the Combine a few weeks ago, I was feeling a lot better about it. And yet I don't know that I'm seeing as much progress as I was hoping to see at this point. So I think that still kind of remains to be seen. But here's the cool thing: we got plenty of time.
Did he just not respond to that surgery as well as you guys had hoped, or what caused you to change a little bit?
Well, I think more of it's just been visiting with him, and he just isn't quite where I was probably hoping he'd be, and really, quite frankly, where he was hoping he'd be.
Does this response sound pretty similar to what Dennis Allen was saying about Marshon Lattimore and Michael Thomas in 2022? Very interesting. Michael Thomas would then respond to this news on Twitter saying, "It's like he uses the same line and just changes the player's name as if there isn't a team doctor and trainers on staff that have nothing to do with it. They're trying to protect them as much as possible, but hey, don't mind me, I don't work there no more. But that's the real problem. I know some of y'all have a short memory." And then he put a little screenshot from the article which basically said, Dennis Allen said that Michael Thomas and Marshon Lattimore haven't made the rehab progress that was originally projected, but didn't say they either has had a setback. Both are quote unquote getting closer, but obviously this is week 18. He also responded to some fans, and here's what he had to say about that. Well, when you get an injury, they build you a little file folder for rehab that's supposed to help you return to play, but in reality it's all the same rehab exercises and procedures regardless if it's an ankle, knee, wrist injury, etc. It's called insanity. Damn, Michael Thomas did not hold back. To me, what stood out the most is the rehabbing injuries portion that Michael Thomas mentioned. This is insane and can be malpractice at times. Depending on the situation, these players aren't getting the right treatments for their bodies and injuries, which is slowing down recovery, rehab, and probably their ability to perform as players that aren't 100% healthy, especially after training camp. You have to be able to treat an ankle and rehab an ankle injury differently than you rehab a knee injury, a shoulder injury, a wrist, whatever it may be. And for the process to be the same for all of them is insane, as Michael Thomas said himself. Even dating back to last season, Michael Thomas took shots at the Saints medical staff, saying that NFL medical sucks because they're cheap, uneducated, and the requirements are very low, but only in some places he knows, which is the Saints. And let's not forget that Michael Thomas isn't the first player to have issues with the New Orleans Saints medical staff. A few years ago, Delvin Breaux, one of the few good players from that Saints defense from 2015 to 2016-ish, got injured in the offseason during a camp or during mini camp, OTAs, training camp. I can't exactly remember. Delvin Breaux was diagnosed with a bruise on his leg and his tibial, but as it turns out, he actually broke his leg. How the hell does that happen? How do you diagnose someone with a bruise and they end up having a broken leg? And under my post on Instagram about Michael Thomas's tweets, former Saints cornerback Delvin Breaux would leave a comment defending Michael Thomas and what he said. Here's what the comment said. "If y'all think Michael Thomas is the problem, we gotta wake up. Given the amount of injuries the Saints in general have dealt with since the 2019-2020 season, but especially since the 2021 season, things are starting to become more clear and together as to why the Saints maybe have players who deal with a lot of injuries and why these rehabs and recoveries are taking so long, and maybe why players are injured so often and frequent. Let's just hope that the NFL as a whole can improve their medical teams and requirements in terms of education and their ability to do their job, because the players are putting their bodies on the line and they should be able to get the right treatments." If you made it this far in the video, I appreciate you. Make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my future videos. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Peace.